Ronnie the King Coleman, Jay the Cutler, and Phil the Gift Heath. The three greatest, the three best bodybuilders of all time, and I have done comparisons using their greatest versions. The first call out, I called it. Second call out, I did a few of them. This is the final call out, or the final countdown. It's their last ever Olympia wins, so it's interesting. Who is the Iron Man, the great survivor, who looked the best in their last time out? Their last time winning, that is. It's not their last competitions, mind you. In all three cases, they all competed after this. So it's interesting. They all lost their Olympia title at one point in time. Not too many hung on to them after retiring. But having said that, I could talk all day about these fellers. 2005, Ronnie King Coleman. 2010, Jay, the Cutler, cut above the rest. And Phil the Gift Heath, 2017. Now let's not waste any more time. Let's ring-a-ding-ding, go through these poses. And of course, I'm not going to also waste too much time catering to the size police. Let's just say there was plenty of pictures of Jay Cutler and Ronnie King Coleman, structurally speaking, so much different. Their leg length, torso length. Jay's got a much longer torso. And also, many pictures of Jay and Phil Heath. So having said that, we're going to dive right into this one, guys, because Ronnie King Coleman, he is a dominant beast. Look at this. Jay probably has the best midsection, maybe the least impressive set of wheels, which is funny because he's Jay Cutler. He has that quad stomp, but it doesn't matter when faced with better set of quads and Phil Heath. Ronnie's are a little unsymmetrical here in 2005, I'll tell you that right now. So were Jay's even after 2009, I'll admit that. But man, oh man, Ronnie just looks like a man, speaking of men versus boys. Phil, what can I say? Without being disrespectful, his midsection, he had a hernia before this event. And if not for that hernia, I'll tell you right now, 2017 is the best. Phil Heath, I believe Superset Man, hello Superset Maniacs, he made a video, and I think he agrees. I'll have to go rewatch that, I believe, but I think he said 2017, aside from the midsection, was the biggest and most impressive Phil Heath. But the fact of the matter is, we judge physiques as bodybuilding fans. Yes, we are all little mini judges in the audience. That's why we watch bodybuilding, to see who's the better built guy. And sometimes we disagree with the status quo. Sometimes we like physiques better. I like Jay's physique. I think it's the best physique here. But Ronnie, probably the most dominant. Phil would be winning, I think. Symmetry in the wheels, good solid condition. But man, that midsection might even bump him down to last place. Guys, gals, everybody in between, it's a front double. That midsection is exposed. You can almost hear my Canadian accent there. Exposed, eh? Here's the front lat spread. Another one. Very exposing of the midsection. Maybe even more so. This is the finals from Ronnie King Coleman. I don't think it makes much of a difference, but you have almost the whole body anyway. For some strange reason, 2005, they just didn't get their feet in the pictures, and it makes it so much easier for sizing. But luckily, like I said, we did have some side-by-sides, and Jay is very wide. I'll say it right now, he might even be wider than Ronnie King Coleman. Always gets me in trouble when I say guys like Paul Dillette are not that wide. I don't care if Marcus Rule said that Paul was wider than him. He's not. He's not. Ronnie said that Arnold was better than him, but he's not. Ronnie would beat Arnold. Ronnie was just being respectful. And it is difficult to be respectful and be honest judging this Phil Heath's physique in 2017. I'll say it. I don't know if he should have lost. I think Bill Bonac probably could have won 2017, but man, oh man, can't ignore it. Jay Cutler, he looks awesome. he's kind of riding the rails here. He's not losing. He's not too dominant. I think he's dominant in the front lat spread. Win, lose, or draw for Ronnie Coleman. He seems to be the biggest, most ripped. He's just ripped to shreds. Monsoon, McMahon. Jesse Ventura, he'd always say that. Come on, McMahon. You know, Jesse Ventura tried to start a union with wrestlers back in the day. And old Hulk Hogan, he went and ratted. He ratted them out to Vince McMahon. That's what Hogan did because he was getting well taken care of. Weren't you, Hogan? You rat. Here, turn to the side. Foolishness. That's true, though. That's true. Again, sizing, a little bit tricky with these fellers, these three. Jay, he squats down to create a massive extra quad. He has two, so it's difficult to defeat him. Look at that. But what it does, it takes away from the upper body. Of course, camera angles are a little bit different too. You have to take all that into consideration. Fiddle, his wheel, he kind of held it different in the side chest in 2017. He didn't sit down on the hamstring. I kind of wish he had of. But his upper body is the best here. Look at that. Separation, big man's chest, even the midsection, even the old Phil the Heath, or the Gift. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. That's terrible. Trump. Mentioned his name. Trump. Anyway, where was I? Ronnie King Coleman. He's good. He's beating Jay. I think is he beating Phil? No. I think Fiddle, he was taking a beating. Couldn't swing to see a punch, or whatever I say. Couldn't see to swing a punch in the front shots. But here in the side, I think that he is doing enough to defeat both of the old legends, the King and the Prince. Is Jay the Prince? He was 37 here. He was 37. That's it. 37 years old. Here's the side tricep. And I know I get veered off into different topics. Look at Coleman here, ripped to shreds, monsoon. But yes, 37 for Jay. 37 for Phil Heath. So he's only 45 now. Jay's younger than Dexter the Blade Jackson, interestingly enough. And Ronnie, he's Methuselah. He's a 41-year-old Mr. Olympia champion. The second oldest. There's two guys in 43. There's two 43-year-old champions. So Ronnie doesn't get any credit as far as being an old man champ. But he should. He should. Now, if there was any pose where I thought, well, Phil's gonna dominate this one, it would be the side tricep. And arm-wise, I guess he is. The wheels look good. Coleman's probably winning in that aspect. But when I look at Coleman, in particular 2005 Coleman, his side tricep it's pretty good. He doesn't have that low, full tricep like Phil. But man, is his midsection, it's beating Phil's, let's face it. It's a lot better. Now Jay, again, he's not the most peeled, especially in the wheels here. Looks a little smooth compared to the other guys. Keep in mind, Coleman and Phil, two of the best, thin-skinned-wise. But Jay, very aesthetically pleasing. And I love his midsection in this shot. I love the flow, proportions. Everything's judged, people. Everything. You have to take all those things into consideration. So, is it a close one? I don't know if it's close. Is it close? It could be, depending on who you're rooting for here. Go to the back shots, beginning with the rear lat. And I can hear you guys now. But Max Moresoil, are you sure Jay Cutler's wider than Ronnie Coleman? Listen, I'll tell you something, and I'll tell you something right now. The 2005 camera angle is tilted a little bit thoustly, so it does render Coleman's upper body slightly smaller, and his wheels slightly larger. But make no mistake about it, when you compare Jay Cutler 2005 to Ronnie Coleman, he was wide as a barn door. I'm telling you right now, Jay's wide. But it doesn't much matter, does it? Because the detail, the muscle separation of Coleman it is much better than Jay Cutler's. Jay also not the best as far as the lat insertions are concerned. Little bit jiggity jacked in that aspect. Nom sing. Now look at Phil. Look at his lat insertions. Look at the density, the hard, crisp nature of his back lat spread. I think he's winning. Coleman's still very dominant in the lower half, and I welcome you to go look at comparison pictures of Ronnie Coleman and any version of Jay Cutler. And for those of you who think, who cares about striated glutes? Well, glutes. He is a butterfly buttocks dominant Mr. Olympia champion, is Ronnie King Coleman. And in many ways, he is winning this back lat spread. But in many ways, Phil's winning this with pure perfection. You open up a chicken, just a chicken, it's a little bit cold, rice, you open it up and here's the back double. And wow, look at the size of those arms on Ronnie King Coleman. You see, I think I preferred his rear double over the rear lat. His rear lat was good, but by times, in particular 2005, he would lurch forward. I get it, he was trying to show off those traps. But it made him look not as wide as I guess he could have been. I mean, look at this rear double. He's eating the other two gentlemen up. Look at the size of the arms. And of course, coupled with the dominant lower half, because I don't think there was any argument. I think he was beating Phil in that lat spread. Jay's not even a question in the lower half. Just a horse. He's a different type of alien altogether. Jay and Phil are still humans. This Ronnie, he's not a human. It's just not human anymore. Now, Phil, he does have those perfect little lat insertions, but it means less, I think, in this rear double compared to Ronnie Coleman. Little unsymmetrical, though, worth to mention. Jay, his rear doubles may be better than his rear lat. Still a little jiggity janked, like I said, in the lat insertion area. And he's good. He's conditioned, hamstrings, glutes, but you're facing off with the two best in the world ever. Nobody's ever as good as Phil and Ronnie. Glutes, hamstrings. It just doesn't exist. Branch isn't bad. Branch isn't bad at all. But anyway, Jay Cutler, not as impressive as Phil, but in the grand scheme of things, Phil doesn't even come close to what Ronnie King Coleman brought. We talk about Phil Heath. Sure, he's dry. Hamstrings, glutes. But Coleman seems to be drier. Plus he has all the separation, the size in the world. Very impressive. Here is the abs and thigh. What a set of abs of Ronnie. Now, here's the thing. For all you fellers and fellacies that aren't as nerdy as I am, I know these little stats about Ronnie, you see. He lost some weight heading into 2005. The judges, I think, told him his midsection was getting a little bit out of whack in 2004. 2004, I think, was his heaviest. It's not to be confused with 2003. It was his biggest. But he was just a little bit, tipped the scale a little bit higher, I think, in 2004. It was more the midsection. So they told him to trim it up. So he was actually in the 270s. I think he was 270-something here. Little bit trimmer. But the midsection, it came out very impressive. And I think out of the three, he's probably the best. He's the most aesthetically pleasing. And as far as Jay Cutler is concerned, he looks pretty darn good too. Look at the feathering in the quad. Midsection? You might not be a huge fan of Jay Cutler's midsection at home. Here at my household, we're not hating on it anymore. But he is shredded. He never brought a bubble gut. Never had a distended midsection. You gotta hand him credit for that. Of course. And I think it's an easy second place, if not first, for Jay Cutler. And in most cases, Phil Heath, he is able to beat Jay in enough poses, but I don't know. This is going to be close. Here is the most muscular. Look at Ronnie. Little bit narrow, I have to say, for Ronnie Coleman's standards. But look at muscle for muscle. He's just as shredded, ripped to the diced. He had that 1990s separation, the front separation. Now, obviously, nowadays their backs are harder, grainier, on an average, than they were back in the 90s, but obviously this is 2005 for Coleman. So. But having said that, Jay Cutler, he is again as wide as a bus backing up. Beep, beep. And Phil, I have to say, he is doing a remarkable job of hiding his flaws. He has a narrow clavicle, and chest for chest, you can see that in Coleman, but in this situation, Coleman in 2005, I just didn't like the way he hit the hands clasped. It made him look narrow. It did. He's not really that narrow if you really look at the picture. And Phil, with those delts and those arms, very impressive. Jay, the best in the midsection, but just doesn't have that arm separation of the other two Buckingham Palaces. Here's a crab position, and write this one off. Don't use this one for Phil. He's not hitting the pose. For some strange reason, couldn't find a good one. Trust me, I've seen Phil getting into this. You can see even his facial expression. He's not squeamish. He's not, well, no, squeamish is the wrong word to use there. He's not going, howitzers. I did this to Keon Pearson one time, and these guys get upset about that, and understandably so. It's not a good representation of them. Coleman, for instance, look at him. He is raw-boned. He is very impressive, and I think with no false modesty, he is actually the most dominant man in this comparison. I thought for a minute there when I was setting it up, I don't know, Phil Heath is pretty darn good, and Jay overall, he's impressive, but I don't even have to look at the score sheets. Ronnie Coleman, yeah. What's your favorite version of yourself, Ronnie? All of them. And Jay Cutler, how do you feel losing to Ronnie Coleman?
Well, I would have had him, but, I mean, I just wasn't big enough. I'll have to come back next year even bigger.
So yes, it is down to a second place matchup between Jay Cutler and Phil the Gift Heath, which it usually does come down to. Unless you use maybe the 2002 Ronnie Coleman, I think might be a vulnerable version. Now, without looking at the score sheets, I kind of thought Jay Cutler was going to win this one due to the midsection. And ultimately, if I was a judge, I might be tempted to vote for Jay, especially if I was seeing them live and I could see the hernia, things of that nature. And it might sound mean, but this is a visual sport. And if a guy loses his arm, a la 1997, you gotta call it like it is. But either way, Phil Heath does edge Jay Cutler out in the score sheets. Pose for pose. So if you're going to do pose for pose, it's a picture comparison. There's no transitions, things of that nature. All that has to be taken into consideration. Although nowadays, I do not think they pay much attention to transitions and movements, things of that nature, like they once did. It could be a shame. Could be. Hit thumbs up on the video. This is the final countdown. Da-da-da-da. Oh, yes, and I did have another song. It is called All I Have to Do Is Fiddle, 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 Fiddle. But anyway, yes, Phil Heath, he just cannot beat Ronnie Coleman. Is there a version? I think the midsection kept him down in 2017. Otherwise, great, maybe the best version. Jay, pretty conditioned 2010, not his biggest.
He was bigger before. I think he was more conditioned before, too.
So 2010, not his best version. They all had a pretty good showing of themselves in their final year as Mr. Olympia champion. Have a great one, guys.